So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on whatever time you're watching this at. Now, it's just gone 8 a.m. here in Portugal. And I've got a super busy day ahead of me. But I want to make this coming on video with you being one of the first things I do today, because this is a super important subject I want to speak about. The lighting is really bad today, by the way. There's no natural sunlight. It's a really gloomy day here in Portugal. But anyway, let me not get too off subject. So I'm going to give you 3 tips that you can use to figure out how much weight you can lift when you're doing a new exercise for the first time. And before I give you these tips, or maybe I guess you could include this as a 4th tip, you're better off starting too light than too heavy. So edge for weight that you think is too light than too heavy, because when you go too light, there's no risk of you injuring yourself. Whereas if you go too heavy, when you're doing a new exercise for the first time and you don't really know how to do it, there's always there's a higher risk. So if you're unsure, start too light than too heavy. You're much better off doing it that way. Now, to the second point, that I would say that's the first point. Now, there's going to be 4 tips. Use the rep ranges that I set you throughout your workout plan for each exercise as a guideline. So let's say you're doing a barbell row. On the barbell row, your aim is to do 8 to 10 reps. You do 30 kg on the bar and you get 10 reps. So you've maxed out the rep range. That means the next time you do that exercise, or maybe on that same day, depending on how easy it felt, you can increase the weight, because you can only do so many reps. You're not going to do more reps next time if your aim is, if you've already maxed out the rep range. I've seen that happen in the past. I don't want you to start doing 12, 15, 20, etc. If I'm only telling you to do 8 to 10 and you've managed to get 10, that's a very clear indicator that you can now increase the weight. As long as form is good, of course, but that goes without saying. I want you just to assume that throughout this entire video, that every time I give you a tip, it's always for as long as form is good, okay? So bear that in mind as well. Now, the next point is you could use an RPE scale. And this is just something you would do in your head. It's nothing like you wouldn't have anything physically there with you, but an RPE scale is basically how hard you found that set from 1 to 10. So 10 being you gave it your all. You could not have done another single rep. 9 out of 10 being you had 1 more rep in you. 8 out of 10 being 2 more reps left in you, and so on. 4 to 5 is generally what I would call a warm-up. Every exercise that you do should be at least an 8 out of 10. You do a set, and then by the time you finish that set, I want you to ask yourself how many reps you had left in you. If you tell yourself that you had anything less than an 8, you went too light, that's a warm-up. Go heavier and do it again, okay? That might be annoying short-term, but long-term, you're going to make so much more progress from doing that. The only time I wouldn't be aiming for at least an 8 out of 10 is if you're learning a new exercise for the first time or the first few times and you're still trying to go familiar with it, because it wouldn't make much sense to go heavy if you're learning something new, like I said at the start, or you're coming back after a long layoff, maybe you've been injured or you've been sick, and even then you want to, maybe grow some familiarity with the exercise again. You don't want to pick up where you left off, otherwise you might hurt yourself, depending on how long you were out for. So just start light and then build it back up again. And that's basically it for my first 3 points. Now, my last point is a very important one as well. Log your workouts. You need to log your workouts. That's why I provide a log for you. So on your workout on the spreadsheet. A lot of people rely on memory. That's a big mistake they're making, and they don't even realize that. If you're relying on memory, you're already going to miss out on progress. I'm so sure of it. Memory plays up. Plus, it's impossible to remember how much weight you've done, on which set, for how many reps, on each exercise. That's just impossible. For the entire workout program, no one can do that, okay? If you're logging your workouts, you have it there on paper or on spreadsheet in our case, and then you can be absolutely certain which exercises work well for you, which ones you're progressing at really well, which ones, as importantly, which ones aren't progressing very well for you. So logging your workouts, there's nothing to lose from it, and there is a lot to gain, which is why I encourage you to always do it. And that will also ensure that you're applying a progressive overload to your exercises as well. And if you don't know what progressive overload is, by the way, I have a whole bunch of other resources on that. I don't want to go into that rabbit hole in this video just because I don't want this video to be too long. But otherwise, that is about it. Yeah. So to summarize, to draw full circle, you're better off starting too light than too heavy. Use the rep ranges as a guideline. Use an RPE scale in your head if you'd like. And log your workouts. Any other questions on the back of this? Let me know as always. Otherwise, take care and I'll see you around.